Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 4. Can you believe it? We're halfway through the class already. Uh, at this point, I did want to mention a couple of things to you. For one, we're going to be working on sound. And sound plays a really important piece in filmmaking. I feel that oftentimes sound designers get overlooked. And the reason they get overlooked is that people take sound for granted. But if you ever watch a film and there's either poor sound quality, or you cannot hear the sound, or there are distortions of any kind, you'll notice how important sound is to you. So let's talk a little bit more about sound. Sound is essentially about completing the environment, attempting to emulate a 3D world in a 2D medium. Intuitively, we know that the sound should match the visuals on the screen. Any discontinuity of this information either shakes up the audience or takes the audience completely out of the movie. A cardinal sin if unintended. Sound is so important to a film that filmmakers usually take time on location to record the sound specific to that location. And I have to tell you, basically when I was writing this lecture that you're looking at on the screen, and as I'm recording it now, I have to tell you, I remember when I was in film school, and even after being in film school, a lot of new or independent filmmakers will say something like, oh, well, we don't have to do room tone. Room tone is where you stand in the middle of the room and everyone has to be quiet. You have to be deadly silent. And what happens is the sound mixer or the person that's taking the sound for the movie, what will happen is they stand in the middle of the room, everyone is quiet, and they just record the sounds of that room. Now, that is called room tone. And what ends up happening is every room that you're in makes some sort of noise. And that particular noise, I'm just going to check here for a second just to make sure. Okay. And what ends up happening, I was looking for my timer. I'm using Screencast, so I wanted to make sure I didn't run out of time. What ends up happening is when you go back to the editing room, there may be some shots where the editor has removed all of the sound because maybe he or she wants to insert dialogue from another shot. Perhaps that editor wants to, editor and the director, because they work together. What may happen is you just need to remove the sound from that particular shot because the sound could be corrupted. It could be just not working for what you're trying to do at that particular moment. So what you end up doing is you go ahead and you borrow sound from somewhere else. But what will happen is it'll sound strange. It'll sound hollow. You'll have this dialogue that you recorded somewhere else, and it won't match up with the other scenes. It will be just a glaring kind of noticeable error. So what people will do is you put in a track of room tone. Then you can put the dialogue over that, and no one's the wiser. You'll never notice it, and it's done all the time. In addition to that, when you are recording film outside, you need to get you need to get the sound of the people outside and everything else. And this is sometimes called ambient noise because you're getting just the kind of noise of that location. So like if you're in a jungle, like you're seeing on my screen, I have a quick little snapshot of Tarzan, The Legend of Greystoke. Not the one that was recently released, but the 1984 version of that movie. And what happened is, if you're in a jungle environment, you're going to hear the winds, you're going to hear all kind of creatures that are just yelping and making noise, and you might hear, water rustling, all this kind of stuff. Well, not rustling, but moving or what have you, and bubbling. That's what I was looking for. That's the term I was looking for. So you'll hear that. If you do not record that, you'll miss out on part of the elements that you need to make this film come alive. Now, what some people will do, and I don't necessarily recommend it, but if you're in a pinch, what you can do is you can record, you can buy canned noise or canned sound that is where somebody has taken noise or sounds from that kind of location, and you can put them together. More trouble than it's worth, I feel. Just record at the time and you're done. But when you are actually talking about film, you need to take in this sound as well. You need to talk about how this sound is actually helping the particular film. I'm just going to touch on ADR for a second because we did talk about Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan. ADR is something called automatic dialogue replacement. Sometimes it's also called looping. This is one of the reasons you want to make sure that you have that ambient noise. Because if you need to remove the sound for whatever reason, you need to replace all of that stuff because you will feel that absence. Glenn Close was, no, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Andie MacDowell, in that particular film, for whatever reason, the director decided at the last minute he did not like Andie MacDowell's accent. She does have a little bit of a southern twang to her voice. Well, what he did is he had Glenn Close dub all her lines. And so that is a great example of ADR. I mentioned also Aaliyah in her movie Queen of the Damned. Her voice was dubbed over by her twin brother because she had died during a little bit before the film was released. And, we're always talking about kung fu movies. Well, essentially, martial arts films, especially from the 70s, they had that terrible reputation for having terribly dubbed audio, where you're trying to take these Cantonese and Mandarin speaking actors and then have someone with an English accent dub over that. And, the result is kind of weird because literally the lips do not sync up with the voice. And there's no way that the lips can sync up because there are two different languages being spoken. So, this is one of the reasons why people take so much time in filming to make sure, in editing, to make sure that you don't have that. Because you can also get an example of that even if the two actors are speaking the same language, because we speak at different pitches, different speeds, all of that kind of stuff. So you have to be careful. Now, in addition to ambient noise helping create atmosphere, it also helps create mood. But you can also use other sounds that are going to help you with that mood. One of the things that I love are horror movies. And one of the most famous horror movies has this sound. Yes, I did the sound effect. Anyway, horror movies use different sounds in order to amp up the creepiness factor. And Friday the 13th, with that little sound motif, you knew every time that the villain was coming nearby that right, that noise was going to come up, and that already put the audience on edge. We knew it was a problem. think about how many times you've heard similar noises in horror movies. I'm thinking right now, your mind has already gone to the 1975 or I think it's 79 version of Jaws, the original Jaws, where you hear da 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 da. You know, when you hear that, you know the shark is nearby. You know the monster is nearby. So that little sound motif or musical loop or interlude or whatever gives you a little bit more information about the scene. You know something's going to happen. So this is a one way that sound is used to create a mood or an atmosphere, and that it helps to round out the entire film. Well, I'm going to end this particular lecture. I'm going to also mention that I have placed in another little link to a video that is in the, I've placed a link for a video at the bottom of this week 4 lecture. And it is talking about the Wilhelm Scream and other obnoxious or weird screams that you hear all the time. And it's not just screams, but it's also other sound effects that filmmakers use over and over again. They have on that particular link, on that particular website, they have something it's just like a 4-minute video about the Wilhelm Scream. And it's hilarious. But it is a sound that we use all the time, and you don't even think about it. Excuse me. So go ahead and look at that, and then look at some of the other noises that, not noises, but other sound effects that we use in film. And think about the effect that it's giving you. Okay, we're closing out for right now. Thank you so much for listening to this. You have a good evening. Bye-bye.